Well, obviously one of the big areas that's been lacking for a few years now, and in fact since I've been in Hong Kong and it has been kind of attempted but never really got off the ground, is a pathway system. So we're obviously at this moment again a little bit inhibited by COVID and what we can and can't do recently, but we want to bring in a pathway system at hopefully domestic and both into a sort of representative level. Obviously our first target age group is the under 19s and everything like that, so that's something that we've started maybe the first run of the ladder to, looking at some of the players. We've done a lot of scouting and kind of, for me, my kind of view of it is that I want it to be a system where we kind of, everybody that plays domestic cricket under the age of 19 is kind of eligible for it. There's no like elite group that you go into, because I think one of the important things with player development is that players don't too early in their careers get a feeling that they've made it when maybe they haven't. So if it's much more open group, and that, I think that helps. Obviously, if we can develop that as well within the club system, then that helps as a feeder to keep in clubs at a decent level of player participation, so that they never really short a number. And obviously that could then lead to clubs being able to enter more teams in the various domestic leagues, which will just help us grow then. And I think when something grows, you get more attention, and then that brings on more players. So it's kind of like it's a spiralling position, but it's in the positive direction. I think in terms of what we're looking to set up with how we've got the system now, and as I mentioned before, the WPL initially was hoped to be started last season, but didn't get off the ground. I think actually it fits in quite nicely this year, because after discussions over the closed season with players, club officials, and like that, we've developed this other system where we've now got a 2-division women's domestic competition. So that gives us a portal within T20 and obviously there's a T10 competition as well running behind it, where we can actually even streamline our domestic game. So we have that Division 2, which is a little bit more development orientated and has kind of a few little rule adjustments to allow players to develop a bit more in that league. And then we have the Division 1, which is concise, the stronger teams playing a bit more competitive cricket. So that we've immediately tightened up, and that obviously, if you add to that, you've got the Women's Premier League, which hopefully players will be playing their domestic cricket to win a place for, and then the combination of the Women's Premier League and the domestic T20 cricket, as their performances will then lead to their possible selection for national squad. But then if you look at the other end of the spectrum, we've got to have something which allows players to compete at a level which is almost really on base ground level, and we've got the perfect tool in that in the WDL, the Women's Development League, which will run alongside on the same time as the WPL. No WPL players can play in the Women's Domestic League and everything like that. So that allows those players to have their own unique competition, a bit like the elite players have got, to demonstrate themselves, but under rules and conditions which obviously help them develop. So they're not put into situations where they have to perform at a level which is as yet not something they can achieve, but they can still feel like they're achieving something. So I think we've got that system now where it's quite smooth pathway through. You've got the Women's Development League, you've got your standard domestic league, then you've got your Women's Premier League, and then you've got your national squad set up. So there's a nice 4-rung ladder there to progress your path through. And obviously, depending on how quick that development is, you can move across that ladder quite quickly, anything like that, or you can move at your own pace. But I think it gives an option. It also, what the Women's Development League is, it gives a vehicle for clubs to encourage players to play, because if you're pretty new to the game, as a lot of young players are in Hong Kong, having to play in a game with a hard ball at quite competitive level can be quite daunting, and may well mean that they walk away from the game because they don't get enough enjoyment of it. So I think that development and enjoyment factor which the WDL allows is a good tool for bringing those players in. So I think it's really good. I think it gives us the opportunity to look at different players at different levels, gives those players a comfortable environment, but also a competitive environment, which is really important to play. So I think the structure is really good, and hopefully that leads to developments coming out of schools cricket and that, which is obviously running there in the background for our development team. So yeah, I kind of hopefully if this all fits in, it will really work well for us.
Okay.